All right, before we roll, we've actually got a really exciting announcement. We've got 4 lucky winners of Guitar Center gift cards because in the month of April, every week we give away a $100 gift card to Guitar Center, which is pretty awesome, just for going online and leaving iTunes reviews. Yeah. And we just surpassed like 150 reviews. Yes. So thanks to everybody who got on there and did that. That's so cool. So congrats, Alex, Matthew, Iggy, and Cynthia. Mm-hmm. You are the lucky winners. You'll be getting an email from Libby, and you'll be able to get your gift card. But thank you for all of the reviews. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. There's 154 on there right now, and like 99% of them are just like amazing, outstanding. Like we just had to sit down and read through them one day because it was so
humbling.
Positive. Thank you guys so much. So yeah, we're really excited to give you guys $100 to Guitar Center.
Yeah.
And we'll be giving away more things.
One of the reviews was Matthew from
one of our winners.
Our winners. Yeah. You have the actual review, like that he said.
I had to read it because it was just like stood out to me. It was so sweet. So this is from Matthew Sanders. He said, "Worship Online is a game changer. They've been killing it for years with their online tutorials, and now they've taken it to the next level with these podcasts. They talk about the best gear, practices, and spiritual truths that every worship team member needs to hear. This podcast is not just for leaders, but for anyone involved in church music. Anyone involved in worship at any level needs to take full advantage of this resource. Thank you so much, Worship Online, for all that you do."
Man.
Thank you, Matthew.
That's crazy.
Thank you so much.
I love
that. Is really awesome.
Yeah, and I love hearing how it's not just a resource, but it's actually changing things. It's changing people's lives.
That's what we want to do.
It's helping him and his team, and just to see really kind of how it's going so much farther than just even tutorials. You know, even this podcast, just getting some of the reviews on the podcast talking about heart and kind of the why behind what we do every week is really cool. So let's roll that intro.
Hey guys, welcome to the Worship Online podcast, episode 22. I'm Libby Lewis. I've been working for Worship Online for a few years now. I do singing tutorials, and if you ever get an email from me, it's probably me in customer support. And now I'm doing podcasts, which is so much fun. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much. And of course, we're with Brenton Miles, who you guys, he just became a very first time dad.
That's true.
Congratulations.
I'm officially a father. I know, it's wild. The last time we were here, we were we knew like by the time we got together again, I would have a little baby girl. So she's here. She's healthy. Mom's doing great. So I'm not responsible for anything that comes out of my mouth today due to lack of sleep. But I'm going to get there. I heard though that's just normal now. So for the rest of my life, I'm just never going to have normal sleep. Yep. So that's cool. That's
welcome
fine.
Being tired forever, I guess. I don't know.
But I'm excited today because we're actually talking about a topic that I think goes down to the root of who we are as artists, as musicians, and leaders within the local church, talking about faithfulness, especially in a culture where everything is so fast and kind of microwave culture. Like, I want it now and I don't want to wait for anything. Joining a team, being a part of a community it's a long game. It's not a short game, and it starts with faithfulness. So I'm excited to jump in and talk about that with you, because I know you've been doing worship for a long time, and it's going to be fun to kind of dive in and talk about that.
Yeah, it really is. And I know, especially now, but I'm sure this problem has been around for so long, is we're in a culture of a lot of entitlement where people, come into a church and they see a worship team and they're like, I deserve to be up there right now. I have what it takes. I shouldn't have to go through this long process of waiting and learning and growing before I can get there. And so what we're going to talk about today is how basically that is so not true, and how we've seen how just being faithful and steady in the waiting period can just be so much more fruitful in the end, because God is going to do so much more in you than if you were to skip ahead to the ending and just go through the process. And so, being faithful in a culture that is just flaky and who wants, a recognition immediately, who maybe creates their own success through Instagram and lives this lifestyle. It's not real. real.
Yeah.
But
we're going to talk about all of that.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a great episode. But before we get rolling, thank you to everyone who's left an iTunes review. We're at 154 reviews now. And we just started in January.
Yeah.
But we're giving away a free annual subscription to Worship Online just by going to our site. So if you want to go to worshiponline.com/podcast, you can get signed up for that. And we would love to get your reviews. Continue to bring them in. You know, we gave away Guitar Center cards, but that's no reason to stop leaving reviews. We love to hear. It's a great way for us to kind of take the temperature of what you want to hear, what you want us to talk about and kind of unpack, because we are getting most of our content now from you guys. And so feel free to send it on, you know, whether it's through the email or through the iTunes reviews. We'd love to hear that from you guys. And so go ahead and sign up, put in your email, and then we're giving away an annual subscription every single week.
Yeah, just sign up.
It's pretty cool.
For our emails, and
it's going to be awesome.
Every week.
All right, so here we are. We're talking about faithfulness. And to kick things off, you were just telling me about this awesome play. You just went and saw a Broadway play here in Nashville, and I didn't realize that Wicked was here.
Yeah,
because I know they're like on Broadway all the time, but they're on tour. And you're able to catch them and so just tell us about what happened.
Oh man, first off, that was a dream come true. I've been wanting to see Wicked for so long, and last minute this great ticket came up, and I got to get some great seats, and then also go behind the scenes, and it was an amazing show. And so afterwards, I'm in tears, and it was so beautiful. I got to go see everything backstage, and I got to meet the cast. And one of the people I met was she was the backup for Glinda, which, if you know the show, basically one of the lead roles. There's 2 lead roles, and she's one of them. And so this girl was she was I'm forgetting the name now, what you call when someone subs in.
The understudy.
Understudy, thank you. She was the understudy for Glinda. And literally every night she sits backstage, full costume, ready to go. And she knows all the parts, every single line. And yet night after night, she sits and watches, Glinda do her part. And if anything goes wrong, if she trips and falls, sprains her ankle, whatever, she'll be there in a minute, to fill in, to take over. Yeah, but most of her job is just waiting.
Consistently just someone waiting.
I didn't know that either. I've learned all this from
in full dress, everything, just ready to go.
Ready to go. At the drop of a hat, she'll be there to take over. And they basically have people to fill in for almost anyone on stage. They are ready for anything. They are just the most professional people ever. But
you're talking about their system,
their
the whole
system,
thing
exactly.
is just
they're ready.
Tight.
No problem, they can fix it.
Wow.
So I was just thinking this week, wow, what that must take to sit night after night in someone else's limelight, to be ready for what might happen, but never actually getting the recognition.
Sure.
And maybe no one even knows your name, but she does all the work, everything else as
you're getting
the lead.
Paid to be the lead role.
Yeah.
But you're not on stage every night.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And maybe just a few times, 1 out of 12. I don't know how often she fills in, but
that's crazy.
it's nothing compared to if she was the lead role. So that just really blessed me, because I thought oh my gosh, how often are we in that position where it's you're just waiting and waiting for your moment, and you see all these things happen for other people, and it could be really discouraging. But yet she remains faithful. She's ready. She never stops learning her parts or practicing singing and having her costume on. And that's what I realized. I'm that's what God calls of us. He wants us to be ready, even if we're in the backstage and the waiting in the dark where no one knows your name. Are you ready? At the drop of a hat, if God called you to go lead worship right now or go to minister someone, are you ready to do that?
Yeah, that's really cool. And because we were talking about that story, and then you also brought up kind of your experience where that was true, because you'd been singing for a while on the team.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, after a couple years?
2 years, yeah.
You had an opportunity to lead for the first time.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a light bulb moment for you.
It was, yeah. So it was back in school, and this worship team led the school. They were the touring worship team. They sang on live TV every week. I mean, this team was amazing. And I remember just going in there thinking I want to be on that team. And at first I was I can do that. I can get on this team right away, and realized it wasn't not going to happen right away. And so for 2 years, I just did backup, and barely even that. I mean, sometimes we would practice and never even go on stage, but we had to be ready. And during those 2 years, the Lord taught me so much. And now looking back, I'm so glad that I had to wait, because the Lord did so much in me that just needed to be fixed and healed before I was actually ready for that moment. But that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But after 2 years of that, I finally all of a sudden went from being the backup singer to being the worship leader, which was like a big role at that time. And we had to be on like TV and touring and in churches. And it was like out of nowhere. I mean, things just went from like 0 to 100 overnight. And I just remember thinking like, first of all, I was so humbled. Like, Lord, why me? Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I hope I don't screw it up. and also like realizing like, I'm so glad this didn't happen 2 years ago. Because 2 years ago, I thought I was ready. I thought I was the best.
Sure.
And realizing now like, oh man, the Lord had to just really rid me of myself in that time. And that's really what he did, because there's nothing more humbling than seeing someone else's dreams come true before your own.
Yeah.
But it's in like, seriously, in those moments where God will just, I mean, he wrecks you and he breaks you down and you feel so discouraged and you never know when it's going to happen for you. But God he is always faithful. And that's what I want to bring it back to is if you're faithful to him, he'll be faithful to you.
Yeah.
And he always will be. Yes. And you never know when that time's going to come, and it really could come out of nowhere. So
That's
are you ready?
Good. That's so good. It reminds me, I mean, I kind of grew up doing music and I was involved in church for a long time, but my first job was actually in radio.
Oh, yeah.
Radio was like
awesome.
kind of part of my life.
Yes, you have the face for radio.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Cool, I'm going to go. Because there's cameras here, Libby. Thank you. But honestly, it taught me a lot just getting to interview and talk to so many different people. And then my buddy and I, Bryant, we actually started a podcast a couple years ago where we just did interviews and we talked to so many different artists and musicians who were playing full time. Cool. And it was fun to just talk about how a lot of opportunities started, and it started in the most random places.
Wow.
One that comes to mind was a drummer, and he was just playing in church, and it was kind of one of those things that they had this conference that they were going to do at their church. He'd been involved for a long time. He was planning on playing for the conference, and then last minute they decided to hire a bunch of players for the conference, so he didn't get to play. But then he got a phone call that was like, hey, do you mind coming in and just sound checking for the drummer who we hired because he's going to be a little late. And so we just need you to come in and sound check for him. So not only are you not playing, now you're being asked to come and sound check for the guy. You're going to get to play with this band and you're still not going to play for the thing, right?
Wow.
And a normal musician, I think, response to that might be like, no.
It's a waste of my time.
Sorry, I'm going to stay home or whatever else. But he was like, yeah, absolutely no problem. He had such a faithful heart and a servant heart. And so he was like, I'm just going to jump in and sound check for this guy.
Wow.
Well, so they're in sound check. He's kind of running through some of the songs. After sound check, there's this random guy that he runs into when he's walking out in the lobby. And he's like, hey, I caught you in sound check. What are you doing tomorrow? And it was basically a call for a rehearsal, like kind of an audition. And 10 years later, this guy's the full-time drummer for Carrie Underwood.
Wow.
And so it all started just by saying yes to a sound check, right? And so I say that to say, so cool. You never know God's timing when we're just making ourselves available and saying yes. So I think, it goes back to the heart behind what we do in serving the church, serving the team, how much we love people and want to be a part, but also are we willing to just be at a place where no matter what we end up doing, we're just going to show up. We're going to be there and we're going to be excited to be there and we're going to, be a part of the community that God has us in.
Yeah.
Because I think that kind of changes the atmosphere. You can read entitlement when you walk into a room.
You can.
Worship leaders, and after a few years of just getting to travel and talk to some different, like even pastors, there's kind of just a discernment, I think, in seeing something in people. If it's expectant or entitled or whatever, you can kind of cut straight through it and see it. Whereas for someone who kind of is a little more like just taking it a day at a time and like a little more hands off, like I don't know if I'm ready for that or would want that. Sometimes those are the first people that we want to jump into something because it's not like this I'm ready. It's more of just a like, let's just try this out, and see kind of where your heart's at. And there's a tenderness, I think, there that comes and that you can kind of see. So just being around, being available. I hope I'm not being too generic, but that's just, it's something that I think we can all take a step back, and instead of having this super fast pace, like I'm talented, I've worked hard, I want to be on stage approach, we say, I'm a part of this family, and whether I'm vacuuming the hallways or I'm helping change diapers in a nursery or I'm on stage,
That's real,
it's all the same. And I've said this a couple times with our production crew. It's really cool to talk to like sound guys and lighting guys and guys who help like with loading in and out, because it's a very unseen task, and it's something a lot of guys love, which is cool. But really, our production director at our church now, he is so good about just reminding us, like, we're kind of cultivating this environment for people to encounter the presence of God. And I feel that way anytime I'm helping like with sound. It's not an on-stage thing, but it's almost like this, I'm helping lead worship right now, you know, in what's happening. I'm not the guy behind the microphone, but I'm still leading in what's happening in this room. And I think all of us are that, no matter what role we're in. Sorry if I'm chasing a rabbit trail, but there's something to that mindset, I think, that is important no matter where you are. Like, remain faithful, be available, say yes, even if it's not the position you want, it's where God has you right now. And that's very important. It's the most important.
Absolutely. That was really, really good, and a lot, like, kind of gave me a lot of ideas while you were talking. Reminded me of this time. So one time I was a worship leader at this church, and I was also at the same time, I was the janitor. I'm not kidding you.
No way.
Yeah, so I would lead worship every Sunday, and like, so I worked for this church, like, and they needed more things to do, and there was no one to clean the church, and the church couldn't pay for a cleaner, and so me and one other lady, every single week we cleaned the whole church. And and I remember thinking, like, there was times where I was cleaning a toilet and I'm like, what? I'm the worship leader. I shouldn't be cleaning this toilet. Like, how? And then I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, that's so selfish, and that's entitlement.
That's exactly what you should be doing.
Exactly. And so what I realized is that even though that was really hard and definitely a time of learning for me, and I had to break that in me, was if you are dealing with the spirit of entitlement, which I feel like everyone is going to at some time, like, just remind yourself to go serve, go clean a toilet, do whatever it takes to break that in you. Because, man, getting on my knees and scrubbing toilets every week, I think made me a better worship leader, because it reminded me like how to be humble and how to serve and how to, like, I'm out to, like, pray over those toilets. Like, come on, bless these toilets, these people, and everything.
these thrones upon which people sit.
Oh my
I mean,
word.
it's true though, and it's the example of Jesus too. I mean, always point back to Jesus' example. He would wash his disciples' feet. It was always a servant's heart, and I love what Chris Kane says more recently, like, it's stewarding the mystery of what God's doing in the church. Like, it's actually, it's not just being a servant, but a steward. And I think that when you understand what God's doing, it doesn't matter what role you're playing. It matters how are we stewarding this whole mystery that God's, like, doing and breathing on. And I think that it's a much larger scope. It's like this 30,000 foot view, and we can stay there and see and try to understand what God's working. It doesn't matter if we're cleaning toilets or we're helping on stage or we're out in the parking lot helping people park their cars. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's all it all goes together. And it's all about seeing people's lives change. And the moment it becomes about us, we lose. It's all about just helping people experience the presence of God that's in a place. And it's so real, it's so tangible, and it's so life-changing and course-altering that why wouldn't we want that for everybody? We can't do it on our own. It's not some magical gift we have. It's the power and the presence of God. And so how are we helping that, which is why it's so fun to talk about this, because it goes so much farther beyond an opportunity to play. So no matter where you are, you might be in a church where you've been playing guitar and you want to step into another role, or maybe you've been just going to your team nights and you haven't even been on stage and you've been there for years,
you're cleaning the toilets,
or you're cleaning the toilets, or you're just getting started. No matter what, like, be in it for the long game, help out and be a part of the family, because you're very valued, you're very trusted, even if it's not in a behind a microphone role. And I think it's kind of a good place to kind of keep our head.
Absolutely. And God never, he never stops surprising me. That's one thing I've learned about him is it just will never, and I think he loves to surprise us, and he loves to just be just look what I can do. Look at what you're doing right now. You might think it means nothing.
Yeah.
But you have no idea.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you just got to try God and be like, okay, I'm going to do this. This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But just watch and see what God is going to do. It's going to just change your life. And there's so many moments I can look back on my own, and I'm sure you can too. Just remembering the times where he just shattered every expectation you had and took you into a totally new path.
Yeah.
But
it's unexpected.
It's so unexpected.
I mean, I was thinking about that with because we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, but when I got started serving in our church, I was randomly I get a phone call. Hey, do you happen to have a soldering iron? I'm like, yes, I do.
Sweet.
And I showed up with my soldering iron on it wasn't, I don't even think it was during a service. It was a random day, a Monday or something. And I got there and just started helping solder cables.
Wow.
Which got me involved in production and just helping with sound stuff. I did not realize how much I would love sound. I mean, I produce and I work on music and I've led worship, but I didn't realize how much in love with front of house or monitors or all these things I would be until it was cultivated within the church.
No way.
And I know so many people that have had that same experience. I can think of a guy when I was on staff at my old church. He came in and he was a young kid and he was an electric guitar player. Started playing electric, and then I think started kind of helping with sound at one point. And our lead sound guy was like, I recognize this talent in him and want to bring him on my team. It was his first hire, and here we are years later, and they've so far passed. I mean, it's his full time. He's touring full time now all over the world doing front of house stuff. And it's cool to think how God sometimes will, even when we think we know the direction he's taking us on, he might throw us in another crazy rabbit trail of dreams that we didn't even know we had, things that he had designed for us that we didn't even know. I was thinking about you, podcasting, talking on a microphone. We were talking about that beforehand. Wasn't expected, but now, wow, look what can happen, when you just say yes to things. It's so wild. It's so wild to think about, but it kind of, when you were just talking, it made me think about this baby I just had. I just had a little baby girl, and I have a daughter now. And for 2 weeks, I literally am just mesmerized. I'll be gone for a couple hours here, and when I go home, I'll get her and I just stare at her. That's all I can do is just stare at her because she's just so sweet. Perfect, and she's the most beautiful. Every little face she makes, every little movement she makes, I'm just overwhelmed with what is this life?
Wow.
How do I get to have the honor of being the father of this girl? And I look at her and I kind of had a couple thoughts along the last couple weeks of I think God looks at us the same way. It's every little move we make, every little face we make, every little tantrum we throw. I mean, she screams because she wants her diaper changed or she's hungry, and I just think it's the cutest thing. I'm like, it's okay, keep crying, because you're awesome. There's nothing that's going to change that. And I didn't understand that until having a baby. I had a friend who spoke at one point a year ago or so, and he was like, there's nothing you could ever do that would make he was talking about his daughter. There's nothing you could ever do that would make me love you any more or any less. I just love you.
Wow.
And I think that stuck with me. And now having a daughter, I'm like, that's exactly how I feel. There's nothing you could do that would make me love you any more or less. There's nothing you can do. And I think God's the same way. He loves us immensely, far beyond what we can imagine. And there's nothing that could change that, no matter how well we perform or how bad we screw up. And he's always going to love you. So when we can tap into that and when we can press into that, actually just being in his presence and being with him, that's the most amazing thing. When I can just hold my girl, nothing else matters, right? And I think that's the same way with God. When we're just with him,
he just wants to be with you. He
loves that more than anything. And we get so caught up in how well we're doing or how we're appreciated by others or not, or how we get to be on stage or not. And God's just like, hey, I'm just right here. I just
be still.
Let's just be together here. That's all that matters. So maybe if you're listening, that could encourage you today, because I know sometimes it's easy to get caught up in that. But from experience now as a dad, I feel like I have this whole new perspective. And I would love if everybody could just understand that that's what it's all about, is just being with our Father.
Yeah.
So anyways, I know that was another rabbit trail, but we're just running on him.
So good. No,
we're running after him today.
It's great. No, I'm excited. I can talk about this forever. Oh, wow.
So anyways, stay faithful, jump in there and show up. Yeah. It's good.
If you're faithful to him, he's going to be faithful to you. And just watch what he's going to do with your life. Just take chances, say yes. Yeah. And just never doubt, because he loves to blow your expectations out of the water.
That's so true.
Yeah.
So true. Well, this kind of wraps up today's episode, but we would love to hear from you guys. If you have any thoughts, anything that you were encouraged by, or things that you would like for us to kind of expound on or talk about, feel free to shoot them over to us. Leave us a review on iTunes. And don't forget, we're giving away that free annual subscription just by signing up at worshiponline.com/podcast. And while you're there, you can email us, you can send stuff in, you can share things with us. Check us out on Instagram. Follow us on Instagram, by the way. We've got stories there all the time of past episodes. So if you don't have time to go through every episode and listen, you'll catch like little clips where you can find out what's going on. So you can check us out there and on all the social webs.